So why don't, before we do this part, sorry, I'm throwing a curveball at you, but do you want to read the definition one more time?
Sure.
Just to kind of like, I know we've probably read it like 50 times.
It's okay.
But just to hammer it home before we go into this next point.
We will be reading it many more than 50 more times. Our listeners will have this hopefully
This is
memorized.
actually a 3.5 hour podcast where we just,
don't do
it's
that
one
to
of those
them.
on repeat,
It won't be that long.
like 24 hours of Joel reading this definition.
Heck no.
Yeah.
I'm not narcissistic like that. Anyways, I hope not too. The biblical, I would argue, this working definition we have of liberty, we've worked to base it more on biblical principles. Mm-hmm. It goes can't talk. It goes like this, y'all. Thanks. So liberty is not a license to do whatever you want. Instead, liberty is the ability and responsibility to do what God says is right and good, and to enjoy all that God has given individuals to enjoy without oppression or tyranny, whether from individuals or governments.
Cool. So with that being said.
The next point we wanted to talk about was, how do we actually preserve this liberty? Mm-hmm. Like, how can we have it? How can we keep having it? And I think something that I would argue, there might be some more points here, but these are the 5 requirements of liberty.
And these are from your brain? Or are they from some other smart person?
I want to say that everything that I'm putting on here is what somebody else has taught me at some degree.
I mean, that's just kind of how brains work.
Well, I mean, I was an infant at one point. I didn't know nothing.
Yep.
So everything I have is coming from other people.
This is true.
So the first thing here is liberty requires faith. Mm-hmm. So without faith, it is impossible to please God, according to the book of Hebrews. If we do not acknowledge and believe in the one who created us, redeemed us in Christ, and gave us liberty in the first place, then whatever thing we call liberty isn't going to be based in objective truth. And as a result, it will be relative, which leads to chaos and only ends in tyranny. So that is the first thing. We have to have liberty. Requires that you have faith in God, the one who gave you liberty.
Okay.
So the next thing is liberty requires truth, which is tied to faith. But what is faith in? Truth.
Yeah.
So to have liberty, you must have the firmness of character is based in truth. We must be willing to seek out and maintain the truth. Liberty does not deviate from what God says is true about the individual, the family, the church, the community, and the state.
Okay.
And it doesn't deviate from the truth about what God says your rights are, right? And that we kind of really got into that in our rights episode of what is and isn't a right.
Okay. So liberty requires truth.
All right. So we have faith, truth. Now liberty requires love, such that to be free, you must take up your responsibility. That is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, as we were discussing a moment ago.
Yeah.
So to be free, you have to take up that responsibility. It's required of you. Mm-hmm. So, I lost my spot there on my note there. But that is in love, how we love one another, in at least in part, and this is a big part I think we're lacking today, is that in love we stand up for each other and we protect the liberty and rights of each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like essential, it's, I mean, how do you, if everyone is so focused in on themselves and like their own self-interest, then like how are you going to create a better, like more free society for people?
Right.
If you're just focused on me all the time, that tends to not go super well for everyone, not just, and also yourself.
Right. And I think right there, I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day, who we do not see eye to eye on many political views, but we have just some of the best conversations about it. We have great dialogue. He gives his points of view.
You talking about me?
No. You do this well, but this guy, he like legit doesn't have the same views as I do.
Yeah.
But he never lets you know what his view is, though. So sometimes I wonder if he's just playing devil advocate.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Right. But he just brought up the point that he has friends that are like uber conservative and stuff that want nothing to do with helping others.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not real liberty.
Right. It's not right.
Right. Real liberty takes up the responsibility to take care of, to if you will, be your brother's keeper. right? And there are all sorts of ins and outs of that, and I invite people to go study the scriptures of what that would look like. But one of the big ways is you're going to protect and defend each other, and you're going to help each other out when people are in need and those types of things. These are the types of things that make for a beautiful and good society that nobody in their right mind is going to sit there and go, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Right?
For
But
sure.
this is what liberty is.
Yeah. Okay. So it requires love.
Right. So we have faith, truth, and love so far. The next one is liberty requires justice.
Cool.
We all either defend the God-given rights of all the people, that is, maintain a system of true justice, or we will all have no justice. Like Os Guinness, as we talked about earlier, he said this, and I'm paraphrase it, it is either liberty and justice for all by all, or it will be liberty and justice for none by none.
Isn't the Os Guinness guy, isn't he like related to
The Guinness
the
beer?
founder of
Yes,
Guinness
he
beer,
is.
the creator of it? Is he the creator?
No, he's not the creator. He's like
Like their grandson
third
or
or
something like
fourth
that?
generation down.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Guinness.
So
beer's
this
been-
guy, he knows what it's like to live a free life because he
Yes.
just sits around drinking Guinness all the time.
I don't know if he does that.
You
I don't
think?
know. He
Here's a
might.
thought.
Okay.
All right, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but
Okay. Do you,
it's called
deviation.
Guinness beer.
Yes.
Okay, but do you think he just calls it beer because his name is Guinness?
Wow.
You know
I
what I
love
mean?
where your mind goes.
You think about that kind of stuff, because some things are just called that because, like,
Well, think about Samuel Adams. Does the family for the Samuel Adams beer just call it the Samuel beer?
right? They just call it Grandpa, Great Grandpappy.
Man,
Get
all
some
right.
Great Grandpappy's beer out the fridge.
So liberty requires justice, and that's how we take care of it is each other. We stand up for each other for that justice.
yeah.
Gonna get out of that.
Which is tied now to getting serious. I mean, justice is tied into love,
Yes.
right? Like you can't have true biblical justice without love,
Yes.
without love for your neighbor.
Well, think about it. If we just let wrongdoing and evil take place, how are we loving the victims? How if we're just letting everybody go scot-free, how are we actually?
Well, because that's freedom. They have freedom to do what they want. And,
It's not.
yeah. You're like, have you been listening to anything I've been saying?
Yeah, I hope y'all listen better than Cam.
Yeah.
He's the one who's been sitting here the whole time with me.
It's I'm not such a good listener.
Yeah, whatever. You
Yeah.
do a good job.
Thanks,
So,
man.
the last thing here. So we have liberty requires faith, truth, love, and justice. And the last thing it requires is that liberty requires courage. So this is courage to make choices and decisions and to take full responsibility for the consequences, whether good or bad. So without bravery, without this type of courage for liberty, we run this massive risk. And I would argue that without this kind of bravery, we will only cower from our responsibility and find anyone who is willing to take the pressures of our responsibility to make decisions and then the consequences of those decisions and take it from us. But this comes at a great cost because this comes at the cost of becoming the slave to the decisions of another. So you have to have courage for liberty. And liberty also requires courage that, again, defends liberty for oneself and for others. If you're going to have liberty, you've got to be willing to take the consequences of your actions, right? And for us who have found that in Christ we have been redeemed and then we've been forgiven, we've been made new, we still have consequences for our actions.
Yeah.
Like Christ has paid the penalty for our sin, but if I step out in the front of a car, I'm going to get hit. That's
You
the
might
consequences.
get hit, yeah.
Right? So, liberty, to preserve liberty, it requires faith, it requires truth, it requires love, it requires justice, and it requires courage.
Yeah.
Courage to take up your responsibility and go do this.
I love that. That word courage, man. It's just, it's very challenging, but it's also encouraging, which that's the funny thing about that word is
Yeah.
encourage literally means to instill someone with courage,
Yeah,
which is such a cool,
I
such
love
a
that
cool
picture.
way of
And
looking
I hope-
at it.
I
You
hope-
know?
Well, I just want to encourage our listeners right
Yeah.
now. Encourage you, and I hope you what you just said encourage me. Like God has given us liberty at creation, right? In Christ, we can now live in this liberty.
Yeah.
We can now actually do this. Like, go, be strong and courageous, like God said to Joshua. Be strong and of good courage. Go take it. and go enjoy it and go preserve it and go take up all these requirements of liberty and go do it. Govern yourself, which I invite our listeners to go listen to our episodes on self-government.
I like that one a lot. That was a good episode. That was fun.
I enjoyed that one too. But yeah, it leads to that.